Welcome to Destination Michigan. We celebrate the people and places that make Michigan a great place to live. Sit back and enjoy tonight's edition of Destination Michigan.
Support for Destination Michigan is provided by the CMU Bookstore. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, maroon and gold memories, and an official outfitter of Adidas apparel at the Central Michigan University owned and operated CMU Bookstore. Online shopping 7 days a week at cmubookstore.com. The CMU Bookstore, online at cmubookstore.com, on campus in the University Center, and game day locations at Kelly Short Stadium and the CMU Events Center. And by Country Smokehouse in Elmont, offering a selection of gourmet meats including homemade sausage and jerky. Also available, custom catering and weekend outdoor barbecues. Information at countrysmokehouse.com.
Tonight on Destination Michigan.
This building was actually, at one point, the heartbeat of this town.
When steam engines were king, the city of Durand was the crown jewel of the railroads. Jump all aboard. We're heading to the Durand Union Station.
We'd like to have them say, hey, let's go back to Zenders. You know, what a great place.
It's known as Little Bavaria. Don your lederhosen and grab a world-famous chicken dinner at Zenders in Frankenmuth.
This time on Destination Michigan, we're headed to the eastern part of the state. We'll take a turn to the north on M13, and we'll have one of my favorite meals at one of my favorite destinations.
Hello and welcome to Destination Michigan. To kick off tonight's episode, we're going to choose to head to a town that prides itself in its rich history with the railroad. The city of Durand, or as some locals call it, Durand, was once an important railroad hub of mid-Michigan. When the Durand Union Station was built in the early 1900s, 42 passenger trains, 22 mail trains, and 78 freight trains passed through Durand daily. In the past century, the Durand Union Station has survived a fire, a wrecking ball, and the end of the steam engine to stand proud to this day as an important part of the proud history of the railroad. To Durand we go as we jump all aboard at the Durand Union Station.
I'm the executive director and basically manage the building and the activities that go on inside it. There's always repairs and maintenance that have to be done, so I oversee that and the activities of Durand Union Station Incorporated, which is the nonprofit. It is a grand building. When you walk into history. I mean, this is what the building was 100 years ago. And the stories that are in the building and the photography, the photographs that are in the building tell that story.
At one point, probably in the heyday of the steam engine, it was said that because there were two railroads primary function here that built this depot, the Ann Arbor Railroad and the Grand Trunk jointly went together in 1903 and built this building, split the cost, and one half of the building was used by Ann Arbor, the other half was used by Grand Trunk. And then in the front was the main rails that had up to 6 other railroad companies buying time on those tracks from the owners. Not only was it a passenger boarding transfer point, it is one of the few stations that has diamonds. A diamond is where 2 tracks cross, like we have in front here. If you look at that from the upstairs, you'll see the shape of a diamond. That's why they're called diamonds. There were actually 6 diamonds around this depot. So trains could switch in and out, come from every direction. Other than a track going from Chicago to Detroit, any train that came through Michigan heading north up to the timber country, whatever, to pull lumber back, had to go through Durand. It was a really busy place. I was told that at one point there was a train stopped here every 9 minutes. This building was actually, at one point, the heartbeat of this town. This was the drawing point. At one point, the restaurant that the depot maintained was a gathering place for, on Sunday morning, people would come down, ladies would come down in her finery and to be seen. This was a place to be seen.
Well, I know that I used to feel like I was in New York City if my parents let me come down here, because on that wall there was a nice big gold box that you could put mail in. And my parents would let me walk down to put the mail in there. I mean, there was no other thing in Durand that was as gorgeous as this, and the hubbub and all the people and the trains, and I don't know, it was just a different feeling to be able to come in here and get away from the other parts of the town even. This was just a booming area here. I mean, they said that more people were changing trains in Durand than lived here. So that's why it seemed like New York City, I guess.
It was the economic source for most of the families here in town. My grandfather actually was a baggage man here. He supported his family, my dad and my dad's brothers and sisters, on that income. So it was a real important piece to the history.
One of the men who lived just a few blocks from here came over to see what was going on with the fire. And they were fighting the fire in the back. It had started in the basement at the back of the building. And a train could never be late in those days. And the fireman was told that they had to get the hose off the track and wait for the train to go by. So they took the hose off the track, and while the train went by, the fire got a start, and it kept going up until it did the whole second story.
Fortunately, the building is built on 14-foot footings and Missouri granite and a specially fired brick technology that was introduced in the early 1900s that the railroad had the foresight to use, which is why the building is in the condition that it's in.
It only took them 6 months to rebuild. So actually, they said it was more beautiful than before, but I don't know how it could have been more beautiful, but the newspaper said it was more beautiful.
The 50s actually, I think, brought the signaling of the end because of the expressways. When Eisenhower put out the mandate to build expressways, cars became more popular. All of a sudden now you could count on cars, easier, more convenient to get to where you wanted to go. So the rail passenger declined, and consequently the railroads started saying passengers weren't paying their way, and they started disappearing. And that was part of the demise of this depot. And also because semi-trucks and things like that were hauling cargo used to be hauled on railroad cars. In addition to being a transfer station, this was also a postal station, transfer station. In fact, the last steam engine pulled the last passenger train from here in the state of Michigan in 1963. And there were over 2,500 people that took that train just for the special occasion that it was the last passenger train that was steam driven. They hated to see the Iron Horse, as it was called, disappear. But what had happened supposedly is that the Grand Trunk Railroad had a couple steam engines break down on their track shortly after the diesel was introduced. And it created quite a backlog of freight trains that couldn't get through until those big steam engines were moved. And the president of the Grand Trunk Railroad at that time said there'd be no more steam on his tracks.
When I came into the building, I can remember the walls upstairs were just 2x4s and the floors were just wood slats. They hadn't really started the restoration yet.
They'd shut all the building down with the exception of in the museum, and that was in '74. That's when we started with the bicentennial, and I was chairman of the bicentennial. I wrote letters for the city to all the organizations in the surrounding small cities to see if they would come and be a part of a Durand area bicentennial. And everybody agreed that they thought that would be a good project. We knew in 1975 that by the end of the bicentennial in '76, we weren't going to have this. And there were hundreds of people that became involved, and they were raising money. The City of Durand gave us $500 to get started. So we raised all the money, and we took some pledges for the depot, but we returned the money to the people. We never had cashed their checks. So many people had given me memorabilia, and I think that was the instigator of, you couldn't let those people down because they were so into saving this history. So it took us from '79 to '81 to open this part. And then little by little, the rest of it was open. This has been a blessing to me, and because of the people I've met. I met people who educated me about the railroad. I only represent hundreds and hundreds of fantastic volunteers.
The building is more of a tourist attraction now. The whole building, really, is the museum. The gift shop and museum is kind of the focal point of it. It has all the displays in it, but upstairs we have all the photographs along the halls. And it's a wonderful place to visit. And we have so many activities here throughout the year. As soon as April hits, we start getting ready for Railroad Days, which is our big community event. We have 3 different art shows that go on throughout the year. Christmas time, we have huge displays, Christmas displays up. And about 30 Christmas trees are in the building. We have Santa Claus that comes in right after Thanksgiving. We have dinners, Red Hat dinners and Ducey dinners, and we just added wine tasting this last year. The entire building's open to the public. On Saturdays, we also have Grand Trunk Historical Society and the Ann Arbor Historical Society that has their rooms with their histories in it. We have track maps and blueprints from across the state. It's all railroad related. They're the original blueprints and drawings of the artwork. My first experience in the building was when I was 16. And that was actually the first year that they opened the building up to the public after the railroad had abandoned it. I didn't realize at the time that I was part of that historic piece of it. And having that memory when I was 16 and now being the executive director of the building is really neat. It's a neat experience because I've been able to see what it was and now what it is and what it can be.
The Durand Union Station and the Michigan Railroad History Museum have fun and exciting events going on all year long. For more information, check out their website at durandstation.org. Our next stop takes us to Michigan's Little Bavaria, the home of chicken dinners, Oktoberfest, and Christmas wonderlands. Our visit to Frankenmuth wouldn't be complete without stopping at Zenders for one of their world-famous chicken dinners. Sarah Adams goes behind the scenes at this Michigan icon and introduces us to the Zender family as we don our lederhosen, grab a stein of our favorite beverage, and head to Frankenmuth to continue tonight's edition of Destination Michigan.
Most Michigan families that I know have, at one time or another, sat down together for a meal here at Zenders Restaurant in Frankenmuth, Michigan.
We serve about 1 million people each year, and that translates into about 1 million pounds of chicken each year. In addition, tons of cabbage and noodles and potatoes and gallons of coffee and milk and soft drinks that go along with that. So it's quite an operation, yeah.
For Al Zender, life in this building has always been a family affair.
I always say we count our longevity in business, our years of service in the business, from the day we got paid. It's not from the day we started working, because we started much earlier than then. You know, memories of standing on milk crates and peeling cucumbers are still very vivid in my memories. I remember as being dropped off in front of the restaurant by the school bus, because my mom and dad were here, and we'd get off and we'd come up into this space that we're sitting in right now, and we were supposed to be doing homework, but we were generally goofing around and running around the business, and it was just part of what we did. It was where mom and dad were, and so that's where we were, and we knew the people that worked here and were friends and friendly with them. It was just a very rich kind of environment to grow up in.
But the story started long before Al and his sister. Many of the family's memories are here, on display in one of the restaurant's main hallways. The story starts in 1845, when 15 Bavarian German settlers came to the area. By 1846, the Zender family had arrived in the community and settled as farmers. Just 10 years later, in 1856, the Exchange Hotel was built on this site, and a restaurant across the street soon began serving, you guessed it, chicken dinners.
Chickens were really only reserved for Sunday dinner, because you needed so many of them to feed a family. So it was considered somewhat of a luxury. Fisher's across the street had a pretty successful chicken dinner business. And my grandfather had a really simple business plan. He said, if we can capture the overflow from Fisher's, then we'll be a success. And they bought the business in 1928 and opened on Mother's Day of 1929. And that day they served 312 people.
On that Mother's Day, chicken dinners were $1 apiece. Al's grandparents, William and Emily Zender, had remodeled the building to resemble George Washington's famous home, Mount Vernon. They, along with their 8 children, moved into the upper floors of the hotel, and a Michigan icon was born. But historic events were looming on the horizon.
Gosh, what a terrible time to start a business. I mean, you're in Prohibition, you're on the doorstep of the Great Depression, and it was a tough time. One of the great stories of our company is, on one day we had total receipts of a nickel when Mr. Getzinger came into our bar and bought a cigar, and that was the complete sale we had for that day. Being in a German community, alcohol, beer in particular, being part of that culture, my grandfather and Mr. Fisher across the street served alcohol in the form of beer to, they always called it the right customers, so people that they knew. Well, word leaked out and they were caught right at the very end of Prohibition. Mr. Fisher across the street was fined $10,000 and my grandfather was fined $5,000. So you can imagine a fine of that magnitude. It was the largest fines levied during Prohibition. It was almost the end of the company, but they persevered, got through it. To this day, that's one of the sort of the rich stories that weave into our fabric. We remember, Grandpa in Prohibition and what he must have gone through. So whenever we think of the tough times that we have, boy, how hard that must have been. And so, they borrowed money, they did what they could do, and everybody was working. Everybody kind of helped together, and they did what they had to do. in order to make it work, and ultimately they did.
By 1936, this iconic sign could be found in front of what we now know as Zenders in the heart of downtown Frankenmuth. And by the 1950s, thanks to the construction of the I-75 freeway, the community was becoming a major Michigan destination. William and Emily's children had carried on the family business and grown active in the community. Then, their children took over, and today, Zenders is still a family business.
I'm in business with my two sisters, and I think that feeling of family and having our families here assists us in understanding what families want, and we try to create a family atmosphere, and our whole focus is to create a four-season family vacation destination. We want to attract families here, a place that you can spend time with the people that you love. I like to put it this way, is we have to be really good at what we do, because I don't know what else I would do. So I'm here, and we're going to be here, so let's be the best we can absolutely be. You know, you think about those that went before you, and you always want to leave something better to the next generation that is coming after you. I remember back when I was a kid growing up, my dad would always get a tradition. Friday night was his night to go out and eat. He would always love to try new places, whether it was Joe Muir's in Detroit, or a little place in Bay City that had a great fish fry, or wherever. He just loved to go to independent restaurants. And when a place closed, he would say something like, that used to be a good place. And as he got older, he would always comment, I never want them to say that about us. That used to be, I remember going there, that used to be a good place. And that kind of resonates still to this day, is kind of kept us going, is we don't want people to say that. We don't want them to say that used to be a good place. And we'd like to have them say, hey, let's go back to Zenders. What a great place. So that keeps us going.
You can find out more about all that Zenders in Frankenmuth has to offer by visiting Zenders.com. Our final stop tonight has us talking turkey. Our resident gobbler, Bob Garner, has found yet another of his favorite places. This one happens to be a distinctive pink building that serves up heaping plates of Bob's second favorite bird. Big Bird, of course, is at the top of his list. Established back in the mid-1950s, the Turkey Roost in Cawcaulin, in its familiar pink building, has been the place to go for generations of families that have made the trip up and down M13 north of Bay City. So the the bird's the word, as we snap on a bib and head back for seconds on our trip to the Turkey Roost in Cawcaulin, as we wrap up tonight's edition of Destination Michigan.
As I've said many times before, to truly get to know this great old state of Michigan and its many great destinations, you have to get off the interstate highway. A trip out of Bay City up M13 north to Cawcaulin will take you to a pink hot spot that for 68 years has provided top-notch turkey dinners for travelers headed north and south. Now, the Turkey Roost is one of 3 opportunities you have in this great old state of Michigan to enjoy one of my favorite meals, and not just at Thanksgiving, but all year round. Cornwell's in Turkeyville off I-69 and Gobblers in Gaylord are 2 others I rarely miss when I'm in that neck of the woods. The stuffing, mashed potatoes, and of course the turkey are good and make the drive well worth it. Todd Baller runs the operation here at the Turkey Roost and has some thoughts on why the Turkey Roost has been such a success for so many generations. Todd, this place has been here 68 years. How long have you been here?
I've been here 18 years as an owner, and I worked here 4 years prior in the 70s as a busboy.
Your turkey is great. How do you do that?
The turkey is, our growers still grow a home-cooked bird. They don't inject them, so we still get our large-sized birds and give a true quality turkey with no injection to get the value and the consistency that we're looking for. Keep the grease level down.
And you keep the building pink, you're not changing it.
Pink won't change. The pink part of the building will never change. So many years, and still today, after 68 years, people don't remember the name, so they look for the pink building as they're going by. It's a landmark.
It served you well?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you roast your turkeys any differently? Is there any secret we can tell our viewers about?
There's no secret at all. We still do the turkeys the same way we've done since 1955. And that's slow roasting them, with just water, salt, and we get our temperature up in our birds by cutting the legs and the wings off. We get our temperature in quickly, and it's all home cooked.
Todd, okay, you're known for a couple things. Place is not expensive, it's got good food, but the thing you're proudest of is how fast you can put out a turkey dinner.
Absolutely, and we have a hidden rule of 2.5-minute service. Our greatest thing is when people come in, especially our first timers, and they go to the bathroom and that meal's already set there. They cannot get to the bathroom just to wash their hands and get back to the table and their food's there already.
And nobody has to hear those famous words with fast food, please drive to the next window, right?
Correct.
And here's an old friend, John Kulhavi, who never passes up an opportunity to stop at the Turkey Roost.
How long have you eaten here?
Over 60 years.
Over 60 years? Now, tell me, how many times do you drive by this place when it's open on your way to your hunting camp?
Well, 12 to 15 times a year.
How many times you stop?
At least half.
At least that?
6 to 8 times a year.
Has it changed much?
No, it hasn't changed at all. And that's one of the things I like about it.
It's always dependable?
Dependable, consistent. I mean, the food is always tasty, it's hot, it's fresh. You can't beat it. It's like Thanksgiving year-round, isn't it?
You can get your turkey fix by checking out the Turkey Roost on Facebook, or just look for the iconic pink building on M13 in beautiful downtown Kaukaulin. And that is a wrap for tonight. But join us again next time for another edition of Destination Michigan.